So glad you are able to join us on this Thursday evening, which is Monday, Thursday. And let me introduce myself to those who might be visiting us online. I'm Pastor Suzette Caldwell, pastor of the Windsor Village Church family. And this is the Windsor Village Church family. And for those of you all who are visiting us tonight, welcome, welcome. We're glad that you are here. So this is day 4 of our reading of the resurrection story. Today on Thursday, this is called Monday, Thursday, and Monday is the Latin word which means command. So this is the day that Jesus, scholars believe that Jesus had his last Passover with the disciples, and he gave them a few directions. And one of those directions comes from John 13:34. Jesus washes the feet of the disciples, and he says to them, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another." So today actually is all about love. God loving us and we loving each other. So happy Monday, Thursday to you. Well, we have read the resurrection story from the book of Luke, and I put in the chat all of the gospels that contain the resurrection story. I encourage you to read all 4 of the books. But we read from Luke 22, and now we're going to John, the book of John, chapter 18. Chapter 18 tonight. So each writer of the Gospels has a different take on the resurrection story, and we're going to learn a few more details about the resurrection in the Gospel of John. So let's get started. Oh, let me, before we read, Sheila, let me just give you a review of the story that we read last night. All right. So in Luke, Jesus is crucified by the Roman government at the insistence of the chief priests, the religious leaders, and the crowd. Pontius Pilate, remember, wanted to release Jesus because he didn't find any fault in him, but his own people wanted him destroyed. So he's crucified on a wooden cross. After 3 p.m., the day he's crucified, Jesus died, and he was buried in a borrowed grave. Many people saw him die that day. But after 3 days, his tomb was found empty by several women, including Mary Magdalene, Joanna, Mary, the mother of James. They are so excited about this, they run back to tell the 11 disciples who did not believe them. But Peter was always the one who had to go see for himself, rushes to the tomb, and he finds that the women's story is true. The tomb is empty. So that same day, he is seen by 2 men that are walking to Emmaus, having a conversation. They're really downtrodden and sad about what has occurred. And Jesus interrupts their conversation and did not let them know who he was. And so they invite him, Jesus, to come and eat dinner and stay with them overnight. Jesus accepts. And before he leaves, he tells them that he's going to send the Holy Spirit. And then he ascends to heaven as he blesses them. And Luke 24, the last verse in Luke 24 says that these men spent all their time in the temple praising God. So we're going to start from the book of John and see what else happened during the resurrection story. All right. After saying these things, Jesus crossed the Kidron Valley with his disciples and entered a grove of olive trees. Judas, the betrayer, knew this place because Jesus had often gone there with his disciples. The leading priests and Pharisees had given Judas a contingent of Roman soldiers and temple guards to accompany him. Now, with blazing torches, lanterns, and weapons, they arrived at the olive grove. Jesus fully realized all that was going to happen to him, so he stepped forward to meet them. "Who are you looking for?" he asked. "Jesus, the Nazarene," they replied. "I am he," Jesus said. Judas, who betrayed him, was standing with them. As Jesus said, "I am he," they all drew back and fell to the ground. Once more, he asked them, "What are you looking for?" And again they replied, "Jesus, the Nazarene." "I told you that I am he," Jesus said. "And since I'm the one you want, let these others go." He did this to fulfill his own statement. "I did not lose a single one of those you have given me." Then Simon Peter drew a sword and slashed off the right ear of Malchus, the high priest's slave. But Jesus said to Peter, "Put your sword back into its sheath. Shall I not drink from the cup of suffering the Father has given me?" So the soldiers, their commanding officer, and the temple guards arrested Jesus and tied him up. First, they took him to Annas, since he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest at the time. Caiaphas was the one who had told the other Jewish leaders, "It's better that one man should die for the people." Simon Peter followed Jesus, as did another of the disciples. That other disciple was acquainted with the high priest, so he was allowed to enter the high priest's courtyard with Jesus. Peter had to stay outside the gate. Then the disciple who knew the high priest spoke to the woman watching at the gate, and she let Peter in. The woman asked Peter, You're not one of that man's disciples, are you?" "No," he said, "I am not." Because it was cold, the household servants and the guards had made a charcoal fire. They stood around it, warming themselves, and Peter stood with them, warming himself. Inside, the high priest began asking Jesus about his followers and what he had been teaching them. Jesus replied, "Everyone knows what I teach. I have preached regularly in the synagogues and the temple, where the people gather. I've not spoken in secret. Why are you asking me these questions? Ask those who heard me. They know what I said." Then one of the temple guards standing nearby slapped Jesus across the face. "Is that the way to answer the high priest?" he demanded. Jesus replied, "If I said anything wrong, you must prove it. But if I'm speaking the truth, why are you beating me?" Then Annas bound Jesus and sent him to Caiaphas, the high priest. Meanwhile, as Simon Peter was standing by the fire warming himself, they asked him again, "You're not one of his disciples, are you?" He denied it, saying, "No, I am not." But one of the household slaves of the priest, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, asked, "Didn't I see you out there in the olive grove with Jesus?" Again, Peter denied it, and immediately a rooster crowed. Jesus' trial before Caiaphas ended in the early hours of the morning. Then he was taken to the headquarters of the Roman governor. His accusers didn't go inside because it would defile them, and they wouldn't be allowed to celebrate the Passover. So Pilate, the governor, went out to them and asked, "What is your charge against this man?" "We wouldn't have handed him over to you if he weren't a criminal," they retorted. "Then take him away and judge him by your own law," Pilate told them. "Only the Romans are permitted to execute someone," the Jewish leaders replied. This fulfilled Jesus' prediction about the way he would die. Then Pilate went back into his headquarters and called for Jesus to be brought to him. "Are you the king of the Jews?" he asked them. And Jesus replied, "Is this your own question, or did others tell you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate retorted. Your own people and their leading priests brought you to me for trial. Why? What have you done? Jesus answered, my kingdom is not an earthly kingdom. If it were, my followers would fight to keep me from being handed over to the Jewish leaders. But my kingdom is not of this world. Pilate said, so you are a king? Jesus responded, you say I am a king. Actually, I was born and came into the world to testify to the truth. All who love the truth recognize that what I say is true. What is truth? Pilate asked. Then he went out again to the people and told them, he is not guilty of any crime, but you have a custom of asking me to release one prisoner each year at Passover. Would you like me to release this king of the Jews? But they shouted back, no, not this man. We want Barabbas. Barabbas was a revolutionary. Well, that's the story. That's the first chapter of John, of the resurrection story. Stay tuned. We'll be right back here tomorrow as we read John, the 19th chapter. We'll be here at the same time, 6:50 p.m. Have a wonderful Good Friday tomorrow. The Lord bless all of you, and I will see you right back here at 6:50. God bless you.